No, level one. Okay, we'll continue our book reading today, Advanced Selling Strategy by Brian Tracy. And we're in chapter 8, Prospecting, Filling Your Sales Pipeline. And we're still looking at sources of prospecting. We looked at newspapers, yellow pages, business publication, trade publications and directories, Dun and Bradstreet, chambers of commerce, leads everywhere, talking about your customers and referrals to other people who will be able to use your product. So today on page 283, we'll be looking at cold calling can fuel your pipeline. Cold calling can fuel your pipeline. Cold calling can fuel your pipeline. Cold calling is another way to get leads. It is both the first choice of the new salesperson and the final result of the experienced salesperson. If you're starting out with no prospect and no prospect information at all, making cold calls on large numbers of prospects enables you to plug into the business and get an intensive education on your product or service in a short period of time. For the first 10 years of my sales career, cold calling was the primary method I used to develop new businesses. It is often called gut selling, and it requires tremendous courage at first. But when you do it over and over again, your fear of cold calling diminishes and eventually vanishes. Finally, you develop yourself to the point where you are not afraid of anything. You will call on anybody and any company at any time. You break through the psychological wall that separates the great salespeople from the average. In my 20s, I traveled and worked all over the world. In Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. Whenever I stopped to work, I would go out and find a job in commission sales, primarily because that was all I could get. In each case, I used a basic technique to launch my new sales career. I found later that you can use the same technique to turn a sales career around or to launch it into outer space. It is simple. It takes a little courage at first, but then it works better and better. Here it is. I would make 100 sales calls on 100 new prospects in the shortest period of time possible. I resolved not to worry about whether they bought or not. The purpose of this blitz was to thoroughly immerse myself in my new products by getting face to face with a large number of people who could ask me every question and give me every objections in the book. They would teach me with their questions and concerns everything I would need to know to sell successfully. It always worked. By the time I had spoken to 100 people, I had overcome all my fears of rejection, and I could hardly wait to get out and make more calls. And something else happened as well. For the next year, I would be doing business with people I had called on in my first 30 days. With this simple method of total immersion, I moved to the top of every sales organization I ever joined. You can use this method to rejuvenate your sales career or start a new one. Just decide that in the next 30 days, you're going to go out and talk to 100 prospects about your product. Don't worry if they buy or not. Your very decision not to worry, not to put any pressure on yourself will have you selling at your best. You'll make sales without even trying. When I was leasing office space, I would take the elevator to the top floor of an office building and prospect at every single office on every front. I would go from building to building and office to office, looking for executives who would talk to me. When I was selling office supplies, I would call on every single tenant in every office building and industrial park I could find. When I was selling soap as a child, I would knock on the door of every house in every neighborhood within 2 or 3 miles of my home. Every time I started selling a new product or service, I would deliberately push myself past the fear of cold calling by doing it over and over until I got into the swing of it once again. After that, I learned at a rapid rate and my sales soon took off. The way you use cold calling in conjunction with your other sales activity is to take advantage of the fact that when you're calling on a prospect in a particular building or area, the other businesses nearby may also be prospects. Follow the old selling adage and make one call more at the store next door. After you have finished the sales visit on your first prospect, go next door, walk up to the receptionist confidently and say, "Hello, my name is Susan Smith with ABC Company. I was talking to Mr. Jones of XYZ Company next door about our new office automation equipment, and it occurred to me that this company might be interested in it as well. Is there someone here that I could speak to about arranging an appointment?" The gregarious instinct among human beings is very strong. When people hear that someone in a nearby office or building is considering purchasing your product or service, they become curious and interested in learning more about it, and you will often get an immediate hearing and sometimes even a sale. Many salespeople have had the experience of making a large, better sale to the person at the store next door than they made to the original prospect. And since it costs you nothing to ask, make a habit of dropping in on the adjacent business. Repeat that again. And since it costs you nothing to ask, make a habit of dropping in on the adjacent businesses whenever you are finished with the call on a particular prospect. So this is what was step 4. Within this morning. Last factor or the last source of where you can sort for prospects is by cold calling. Cold calling is just like calling any random company just to tell them about your product and services. It's not like you've met these people before. It's not like you've met anybody directly in that company, but you got their number somehow, maybe on their website, and you felt that they were going to be a good prospect, and you felt that they would be able to purchase your product and service and to be helpful to them. So you decided to put a call across to tell them more about your products and services. That is what cold calling is. He also used himself as an example of how he had traveled to many countries and the rest of it. So cold calling, you may not sell at the initial stage of cold calling, or you will not sell immediately when you're cold calling, but if you keep doing it, somehow, someday, you may get a call back from any of those companies you've placed a call across. They want to know more about your product and service, and maybe invite you for an interview or a meeting to know what your product and services are all about. Okay, so that is brief one for our reading today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.